I used to make Thanksgiving dinner every year without fail. Even when my husband was still alive, it was always my kitchen, my recipes, my table settings. Michael was 5 when I first let him stir the gravy. He spilled half of it, but I remember laughing instead of scolding. It was always our thing. I never imagined that one day I'd be sitting alone in a silent house, wondering when exactly I stopped being part of the plan. It started with something small. Megan, my daughter-in-law, had been short with me on the phone the last few times we spoke. She'd say things like, "We're still figuring things out," or "We're not sure how big we're going this year." But I didn't push. I assumed I'd get the call eventually, the same one I got every year. "Mom, what can you bring?" Only this time, the call never came. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I went to the store like I always did. I told myself I was just grabbing some groceries, but I ended up buying sweet potatoes, cranberries. It's the same spices I use for the turkey rub. Force of habit, I guess. I even picked up one of those foil roasting pans. I told the cashier it was for the church potluck. There was no potluck. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Wednesday afternoon, I finally asked. I called Michael while I was folding towels in the laundry room. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, what's up? I didn't waste time. Just wanted to check what time dinner is tomorrow. I bring the green bean casserole or dessert." There was a pause. "Too long of a pause, Mom," he said, his voice quieter. "We're just doing something small this year. Megan's parents are in town, and the kids have been a lot," and he stopped. "We were actually going to take a break this year. Keep it low-key, no stress." It took a second to understand what he was saying. "So, you're not doing Thanksgiving?" "We are. Just Megan's mom is handling everything. Just them and us. And not me." Silence. I sat down on the edge of my bed. The folded towels in my lap suddenly felt heavy. "Michael," I said slowly, "you're telling me I'm not invited to Thanksgiving?" "No, it's not like that," he said quickly. "It's just, Megan thought maybe you could use a break. You've been through a lot this year with your hip and all. We didn't want you to feel like you had to cook." I didn't say anything. He kept talking. "We figured you could rest this time, you know? Just relax, watch a movie. I mean, it's only 1 year." I looked at the wall in front of me. The photo of Michael and me from his college graduation was still hanging above my dresser. I stared at it while my son told me I should spend Thanksgiving alone. "I see," I said quietly. "Well, thanks for letting me know." "Mom, don't be like that. It's not a big, I have to go," I said, and I hung up. I sat there for a long time, long enough for the room to go dark without me turning on the lamp. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was confused, embarrassed, and mostly I felt stupid. I'd been to the store. I'd bought the turkey rub. I'd cranberry sauce in the fridge. For what? I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, going over every conversation I'd had with Megan in the past month. Had I said something wrong? Offended her somehow? I remembered complimenting her apple pie last year, even though it was store-bought. I remembered telling her how nice the kids looked for Halloween. I remembered offering to help decorate the house when I visited in early November, and she told me they had it covered. In the morning, I went to make coffee, and while it brewed, I opened Facebook. I know it's silly, but I wanted to see what Megan was posting. I don't usually check it much, but there it was. A photo of the table already set, captioned, "Excited for a quiet family Thanksgiving tomorrow." Quiet family? I stared at that phrase for a long time. It was then that I realized this wasn't forgetfulness or miscommunication. This was a decision. I wasn't wanted. I stood there in my kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, and something in me shifted. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to call back and ask for a plate to go. I wasn't going to show up with a pie like some sad character in a movie. I was going to cook. Not for them, for me. I spent the whole day in the kitchen. I made the mashed potatoes from scratch, just how Michael likes them. I made stuffing the way my husband used, too dry, with too much sage. I roasted a small turkey breast. Just enough. For one, I set the table for one person. I lit a candle, poured myself a glass of wine. I even played the Thanksgiving playlist Megan had sent me 2 years ago. I ate in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't toast to anything. I just sat there chewing and thinking. By dessert, I was tired. Not physically, but emotionally tired. That kind of bone-deep heaviness that doesn't go away with sleep. I cleaned up, packed everything into small containers, and put them in the fridge. Then I opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account, not because I suspected anything, just because I hadn't looked at it in a while. Michael had access. I gave it to him after my surgery, just in case. He said he'd help with the bills. While I was recovering, it made sense at the time. But as I looked at the last few months of transactions, my stomach tightened. $183.77. Amazon $621.40. Target $89.99 Uber. Eats $1,021 Apple Store. $49 something called Steam. Games. None of these were mine. I scrolled further. Megan's name appeared on one of the linked shipping addresses. My shipping address. But her name? They were using my account. Still, without asking, I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. So, not only had they excluded me from Thanksgiving, they'd continued to spend my money like it was nothing. I thought about the times Megan mentioned buying gifts for the kids. The new iPad Michael showed off last time we had lunch. The new coffee machine they said was a gift from Megan's parents. Maybe it wasn't. I didn't touch anything that night. I just sat there quietly. Making a plan, let them enjoy their quiet family dinner. I was done being quiet. I didn't cancel the card right away. I know that's what most people would have done, but I needed to be sure. I wanted to see just how far it had gone. So I waited the Monday after Thanksgiving. I went back into the account and started going line by line. 3 months of purchases. Nearly every big expense was under $1,200. Just below the threshold that would have triggered a fraud alert from the bank. They knew what they were doing. They weren't buying groceries or necessities. It was electronics, clothes, subscriptions, app store charges, fast food. Megan had even signed up for one of those monthly wine delivery services using my card. I don't even drink wine unless it's on Thanksgiving. What really hit me wasn't the amount. It was the familiarity with which they spent it. They didn't ask. They didn't even hide it. It was as if they truly believed the money belonged to them. I called the bank on Wednesday and removed Michael's access. Quietly, no confrontation. Just a quiet, secure lock on every account. I opened a new checking account and transferred my Social Security and pension deposits there. I let the old account sit for a few more days, just to watch what happened. By Friday, 2 charges had been declined. One was a payment to a clothing subscription box. The other was a DoorDash order. I recognized the delivery address. It was theirs. I didn't hear anything from Michael that day, but Megan texted me that evening. Megan, hey, Helen, did your bank freeze your card? We're trying to figure out a declined payment and thought maybe it was something weird on your end. Let us know. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I stared at the message for a long time before putting the phone down. The nerve. She didn't mention the fact that they'd excluded me. No apology, no explanation. It's just a friendly little message about the card they shouldn't have been using in the first place. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking back to all the years I'd spent trying to make holidays feel special. For them, there was that one Thanksgiving, maybe 5 years ago, when Megan forgot to take the turkey out of the freezer. She called me in a panic at 7 a.m. I drove across town with mine already in the oven and brought the entire meal over. Fully cooked, just so the kids wouldn't be disappointed. No one thanked me for that 2 years ago. They forgot to buy cranberry sauce. I made mine from scratch and brought 2 jars. Last year they served cold rolls and I didn't say a word. Just smiled, passed them down the table, and told Megan everything looked beautiful. And now they didn't even want me at the table. Saturday morning, I woke up at 6:30, made coffee, and decided to clean out my storage closet. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I needed a project, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I pulled out every old casserole dish, every tablecloth, every plastic bin full of decorations. There were napkin rings shaped like turkeys. It's the old thankful banner Michael made in kindergarten. Gotcha. And a gravy boat shaped like a cornucopia that had belonged to my mother. I lined everything up on the dining table. It looked like a museum of holidays past. Then I went to the photo box. It's the one I hadn't opened in years. There was a picture from 2008, the first Thanksgiving Megan spent with us. She looked so different back then, sweet, unsure, polite. I remember how she insisted on bringing dessert. And it ended up being a store-bought pie that no one liked, but we all pretended to love it anyway. Michael carved the turkey that year. His hands were shaking. He was so nervous trying to impress her. I flipped through more photos. Year after year, the same scene. My house, my table, my dishes. Me in the kitchen, apron on, them smiling, sitting, eating. Not once had I asked for anything in return. I closed the box and pushed it under the couch. I was done with memories for now. Sunday afternoon, Michael finally called. "Hey, Mom," he said, in that voice he uses when he's pretending nothing's wrong. "Everything okay? Megan said your card's acting up." I locked the account. I said simply. Oh, there was a pause. "Was there fraud or something?" "No," I said. "I just removed you." Another pause. "Wait, what?" "I removed your access to my accounts," I said again, slower this time. "I moved everything. The card isn't acting up. It's off. It's turned it off." "Mom, I don't understand. Why would you?" "'Cause it's my money, Michael. You and Megan have been spending it for months without asking. That's why." "Okay, hold on," he said, clearly caught off guard. "We weren't trying to hide anything. You said after your surgery that I could handle the bills, so I said you could help me with the bills while I was recovering. That was over a year ago. I didn't say you could buy iPads and wine subscriptions." He was quiet. Then, "It's not a big deal, Mom. We were going to talk to you about it." "No, you weren't," I said. "You just hoped I wouldn't notice." I could hear the anger creeping into his voice. "So what? You're just going to shut us out now?" "No, Michael," I said calmly. "You and Megan already did that. When you decided I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving, that was Megan's idea." "But you agreed to it," I interrupted. "You didn't call to tell me. You let me find out by asking. You let me cook alone. You let me eat alone. And then you kept using my money like nothing happened." "Mom, come on, don't blow this out of proportion." "I'm not blowing anything out of proportion," I said. "I'm just done. I'm done funding people who don't respect me. And I'm done pretending everything's fine when it's not." He let out a sigh. "Fine, you do what you want." "I already am," I said. "Goodbye, Michael." And I hung up. That night, I wrote a list. It had 2 columns. What I gave them, paid for Michael's undergrad, helped with the down payment on their house, bought their first washer and dryer covered. Daycare for 2 years, hosted Thanksgiving for 26 years, grocery help, utility, bills, birthday parties, holidays. Silence what? They gave me exclusionability, folded the list, and taped it inside the kitchen cabinet. Not to punish myself, but to remember. Next time I started doubting myself, I wanted to see it written down. I wanted the truth to stare back at me Monday morning. I called my lawyer. I had no intention of taking legal action, but I wanted to make sure the will was updated. Everything had Michael's name on it because I had trusted him. But now, that needed to change. He didn't need to know yet. But one day, he would. The following week was quiet. No texts from Michael. No messages from Megan. I half expected some kind of apology, maybe not sincere, but at least for appearance's sake. Nothing came. Not a call, not a card, not even a cheap attempt to smooth things over. They went silent, which told me everything I needed to know. On Wednesday, I had my appointment with the lawyer. His office hadn't changed since the last time I'd been there, about 2 years back after my husband passed. Gerald was in his late 60s, polite, never too talkative. That morning, he greeted me with a firm handshake and asked how I'd been. I didn't give him the full answer. "I need to change the will," I said. Once we sat down, he nodded and pulled up the document on his screen. "Everything currently goes to your son, Michael. Do you want to change beneficiaries?" "Want to remove him entirely?" Gerald raised an eyebrow. "Everything." "Yes, everything. The house, the accounts, my personal effects." He hesitated for a second, maybe waiting to see if I'd soften the blow or change my mind. I didn't. I'd like to create a trust for a scholarship fund. Nursing students, preferably single mothers or women over 40 going back to school. He started typing any name for the fund. I thought for a moment. "The Robert Langley Memorial Fund." I said, "My husband's name." He nodded, made notes, and asked me to return the following week to review the draft. I left the office with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. By Friday, I had moved on to clearing out the basement. I didn't have a plan in mind, just a sudden urge to take back my space. Over the years, I'd let Michael and Megan store boxes down there. Old baby clothes, toys, unused furniture, bins with no labels. I started moving their things into a corner and stacking them neatly. It wasn't an angry act. It felt practical, like making room for myself again. That same afternoon, Megan showed up at my door. I opened it to find her standing there, with a plastic container in her hands and a look on her face that I didn't trust for a second. "Hi, Helen," she said. "I brought you some of my pumpkin bread. Thought you might like a little something sweet." I didn't move. I looked at the bread, then back at her. "Can I come in for a second?" she asked, her smile tight. I stepped aside. She walked in too. The living room like it was still hers. It's like nothing had happened. I stayed by the doorway while she sat down and placed the container on the coffee table. "I just wanted to check on you. After Thanksgiving, we figured you were probably upset." "Not upset," I said. "It's just surprised." "Well," she said, drawing out the word like she was carefully choosing the next one. "It's been a stressful year. We didn't want to overwhelm you by inviting me to dinner." She ignored that and smiled again. "Anyway, Michael, said you were looking at your accounts. Is everything all right?" There it was. "I updated some things," I said. "That's all." "Well, I hope you're still keeping him on for the will stuff. We've always been on the same page about what your wishes were." She was trying to sound casual, but I caught the edge under her words. She wasn't here to check on me. She was here because they'd figured out I was pulling away. "I've made some changes," I said plainly. Megan's smile wavered. "Changes?" "I've moved everything into a trust. Michael's no longer listed as beneficiary." She blinked. I could see her trying to process that. "Oh," she said. "That's sudden." "Not really," I replied. "I've been thinking about it for a while." Kai just finally followed through. Megan sat up straighter. "Helen, I hope you're not doing something you'll regret. These decisions, sometimes they're better made when emotions settle." "There's no emotion," I said. "Just clarity." She didn't argue, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. She was trying to figure out what to say next, how to steer the conversation, how to spin it. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "Speaking of clarity," she said, "we actually have some forms we've been meaning to show you, just some updates for emergency planning, financial stuff, medical directives, things like that. We thought it'd be good to get ahead of it before the end of the year." She opened the folder and slid a few pages toward me on the coffee table. "Nothing complicated," she added. "We even filled in most of it to save you time." I didn't sit down. I didn't even look at the papers, but I could see enough. Her handwriting. My name typed out on a form labeled Financial Proxy Authorization. "You've been filling out my documents." "Well," she said quickly, "we drafted them. We weren't going to submit anything without your signature. Obviously." Megan, I said, keeping my voice level. Are you asking me to sign over financial power of attorney to Michael? She paused, realizing she couldn't lie. Just for emergencies. A safety net. Do you know in case something happens and decisions need to be made? You mean? Like canceling my cards, selling my house, moving me into assisted living. Of course not, she said, trying to sound offended. Helen, we love you. I looked at the papers again. I picked them up and walked to the kitchen. She followed. You don't need to decide now. We can go over it. I slid the folder into the trash. Her face went pale. We're done here, Megan, I said. I don't need your bread, and I'm not signing anything. Michael's going to want to talk to you about this, she said, her voice tight. Tell him to call. Me, I replied, and tell him to bring a lawyer. Megan stared at me for a few more seconds. Then, without another word, she grabbed her purse and left. After the door closed, I exhaled slowly. I didn't feel shaky. I didn't feel uncertain. I felt clear. I called Gerald again that night and told him what happened. He said he'd make sure the documents were locked and notarized by Monday, just in case. That weekend, didn't leave the house. I kept my phone on silent and only checked it once or twice each day. There were a few missed calls from Michael and one voicemail I didn't bother listening to. I needed space to think clearly, and I knew that whatever conversation he wanted to have would be less about me and more about what I'd taken away from them. On Monday, I met Gerald again. He handed me a printed copy of the updated documents, will, trust, property deed, all signed and notarized. Everything was in place. Michael was officially removed from all inheritances. The trust was active. The house was now protected and out of reach. We talked through the final steps and what to expect in case they tried to contest anything. Before leaving, I asked, do I need to warn them? Gerald shook his head. They'll find out eventually. Let them be the ones surprised. Nodded. That was enough for me by Wednesday. I received a card in the mail. No envelope. Just a folded piece of cardstock left in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. The handwriting was Michael's. Mom, this has gone too far. We need to talk. Please come to dinner on Saturday night. It's just us. No Megan's parents. No extended family. We want to fix this, please. It was vague. Too vague. But part of me still wanted to believe he meant it. I reread the message at least 5 times before. Setting it down, Saturday came. I didn't respond to the card, but I drove over anyway. I didn't bring food, and I didn't dress up. I wore jeans, a sweater, and the same coat I used to walk around the block every morning. When I pulled into their driveway, Michael's car was already there. Megan's too. The house looked the same as always. Teedy, suburban, controlled. A single porch light was on. I knocked, and after a few seconds, the door opened. Michael stood there. He smiled like everything was fine. Hey, Mom, glad you came. Stepped inside without returning the smile. Megan appeared behind him, hands clasped in front of her like she was preparing for a customer service complaint. The dining table was set, but no food had been brought out yet. That made me suspicious. Usually Megan was proud to show off her cooking, or at least whatever she ordered from catering. We sat. Michael opened with small talk, whether the news. The kids, I didn't respond much. After about 10 minutes, he cleared his throat and said, so we wanted to talk. I nodded, saying nothing. Megan jumped in. We just feel like everything escalated so quickly. And we know you're upset, but it really doesn't have to be this way. I raised an eyebrow. This way. She pressed her lips together, then tried again. All this tension, it's not good for anyone, especially not the kids. So now it's about the kids. I asked. Michael sighed. Mom, look, we made a mistake. The Thanksgiving thing, maybe it wasn't handled well. I get that. Cutting us off financially, changing the will, freezing the cards. It's a lot. I leaned back in the chair. A lot for who? He didn't answer. You think Thanksgiving was just a scheduling issue? I said. But it wasn't. It was the final proof of something that's been going on for years. You used me. And when I stopped being convenient, you cut me out. Megan jumped in again. We didn't cut you out. What? I asked sharply. Decided I didn't fit the image of the perfect Thanksgiving. You thought I'd sit quietly in my little apartment while you played happy family in my absence? You thought I'd keep paying for your lifestyle and pretend not to notice. Michael stood up. Mom, calm down. No, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm not yelling. I'm not slamming doors. I'm sitting here stating facts. You banned me from Thanksgiving. You spent money from my accounts without permission. You tried to get me to sign over control of my finances. And now you're upset because I protected myself. Megan looked down, fiddling with a napkin. Michael crossed his arms. So what's your plan then? To leave us out of your life entirely? I looked him in the eye. You already did that yourselves. There was a long pause. The room felt colder somehow. Then Megan finally said it. We just thought, if we invited you over, we could talk things through. Maybe undo some of the changes you made. So that was it. It's the dinner that never happened. There was no meal coming. No reconciliation. It's just a planned performance to manipulate me into reversing the decisions they couldn't live with. I stood up. I see now, I said. This wasn't about making things right. It was about getting back control. Michael moved toward me. Mom, please. Just listen. I've already listened. For years. While you borrowed. While you guilted. While you made me feel like the only value I had was what I could give you. I grabbed my coat off the back of the chair. You don't get to decide when I matter. You lost that privilege when you made Thanksgiving about exclusion and entitlement. Megan looked up. You're overreacting. That word overreacting was the last straw. I walked to the front door and turned back. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a choice, and now I've made mine. Michael raised his voice slightly. What do you want us to do? Beg? No, I said. I want you to stop thinking I owe you something because I don't. And I walked out. The moment I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel hurt. What I felt was something that had taken me months to find control. Not revenge, not satisfaction. It's quiet, deliberate control over what I allowed and what I refused to carry anymore. I drove straight home, took off my coat, and sat at the kitchen table. I didn't cry. I didn't replay the conversation. I didn't wonder if I had gone too far. I only thought about what needed to happen next. Michael and Megan had shown me what they cared about. Not the relationship, not repair. They wanted access to my money, my name, my property. They'd used the idea of family as a shield. But shields don't work anymore when you stop pretending they're not broken. On Monday morning, I made an appointment at the county recorder's office. I brought every document Gerald had prepared. I filed the transfer of the deed into the trust, finalized the notarization of the will, and signed a legal affidavit to protect the fund I created in my husband's name. Once that was done, everything else would be out of Michael's hands, for good. Afterward, I went to a print shop and had 30 personalized cards made. They were simple, cream background, small line of text on the front, in honor of the value of truth. Inside it said, this holiday season, instead of gifts or visits, I've chosen peace. I will no longer engage in relationships built on silence, obligation, or debt. I wish you clarity in the year to come. I didn't sign it as Mom or Helen, just my full name. No emotions, no accusations, just a clean, sharp message. I mailed one to Michael and Megan. I mailed another to Megan's parents, who had hosted the Thanksgiving I wasn't invited to. And I sent the rest to a few extended family members who had started asking questions about what happened between you and Michael. As if I was the one who had blown up the family. On Wednesday, Michael called again. I let it ring. Then Megan sent a message. Megan, what is this card about? Why are you making this public? You're trying to embarrass us? I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, Megan, you're doing this for attention. It's pathetic. Still, I didn't reply. A few hours later, Michael tried calling again, then a voicemail. Mom, I don't know what you're trying to prove, but all you're doing is isolating yourself. We tried to fix this. You walked out. And now you're playing victim. You're not making things better. You're burning bridges. I listened to the voicemail twice, then I deleted it. On Friday, I got a call from Gerald. I got a strange voicemail from Michael, he said. He asked if I was the one who convinced you to cut the family out of the will. I didn't respond. I expected something like that, I said. Let me know if he contacts you again. I don't want to be dragged into more conversations, understood. I hung up and turned off my phone for the rest of the day. That evening, while I was folding laundry, someone knocked at the door. I checked the peephole. 'Twas Megan. I opened the door part way. She looked irritated. Want to talk, she said. You're talking. Michael and I don't appreciate being made to look like villains. You sent those cards out to humiliate us. I opened the door fully. I sent those cards to end confusion, not to humiliate anyone. I'm not hiding from what I've done, Megan. You are. You're splitting the family, she said. The kids are confused. They think you're mad at them. They're children, I replied. And I've never spoken a word against you to them. But if you're using them to guilt me, don't. I won't respond to that. She folded her arms. Do you even care what this is doing to Michael? He's hurt. He's trying to fix it. I tilted my head slightly. Michael is hurt that he lost access. That's not the same as being sorry. Her jaw tightened. She didn't deny it. I don't owe either of you more than I've already given, I said. And I certainly don't owe silence. You're bitter, she said. I'm done, I corrected. There's a difference. She looked around as if expecting someone else to jump in and support her. But it was just us. My front porch. It's my rules. She turned to leave, then stopped. You think this is over? You think you can just write us off and walk away? I already did, I said, and nothing happened. That's how I know it was the right choice. She left without another word. On Sunday, I packed up everything in the basement. I labeled every box with Michael's name, loaded them into my car over 3 trips, and dropped them off at a small storage unit a few miles away. I paid for 3 months and left a note at their house. Your things are at this address. Unit 104. I've paid through March. After that, the account is yours. No signature, no anger. Just a quiet transfer of responsibility. They wouldn't get access to my home anymore. Not through boxes. Not through old excuses. Not through habit. I also changed the locks on Monday. Not because I was afraid, but because I was tired of being accessible. By Wednesday, a new message came. Michael, so you're really cutting us out. I didn't reply then, Michael. Fine. Don't be surprised when nobody calls next holiday. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I deleted it. They thought holidays were leverage. That exclusion worked both ways. But they never understood had already spent last Thanksgiving alone. I had already faced that silence. And now it didn't scare me anymore. The following week, I didn't hear from them. No more texts. No more knocks at the door. Not even passive-aggressive messages. I think Megan finally understood that she had no more room to maneuver. Michael, too. I expected one last attempt from them, maybe some guilt trip about the kids or some fake apology tied to a request, but it never came. And that silence told me more than any message could have. I spent those days cleaning the house room by room, not out of anger or obsession, but to take back what was mine. I cleared drawers, boxed old things, donated what I didn't use. I went through photos some I kept. Most I tucked away into a plastic bin labeled no longer relevant. I wasn't erasing the past. I was deciding what part of it I wanted to carry. That Friday, I did something I hadn't done in years. I hosted dinner, not for them, for myself and for neighbors on my block, women like me. Widowed, retired, mostly ignored by their adult children. We talked in passing over the years, waved during yard work, exchanged cookies during Christmas. But that night I invited them over. We all brought something. Carol brought lasagna. Joyce brought a salad. Naomi brought pie. I made the garlic, bread and tea. We sat at my table, the same one Megan said was too crowded, too outdated. That night, it felt full again, not just the table, it's the house. Joyce told me her daughter hadn't called in 3 weeks. Naomi's son only visited when his car broke down. Carol said her grandson had asked her if she was still working. He didn't, even though she'd been retired for 6 years. We didn't cry about it. We didn't dwell on it. We laughed. We ate. We talked like people who had decided that waiting for recognition wasn't worth the cost anymore. At the end of the night, they were putting on coats. Joyce turned to me and said, "You should do this again. This house feels good." Stayed with me. The next morning, I went to the community center and filled out paperwork to rent a small room twice a month. I asked them if I could organize a regular dinner club. Nothing fancy, just a place where people like us could bring food, talk, and not be alone. The woman at the desk smiled. "We've been needing something like this." Back home, I made flyers and walked them door to door. I didn't post online. I didn't tell Michael or Megan. I didn't ask for help. I didn't want any ties to people who thought proximity equaled love. 2 weeks later, I hosted the first one. 9 people came. A month later, there were 18. By February, we had to move into the larger hall. I didn't tell anyone the reason I started it. I didn't make speeches or play therapist. I just showed up, cooked, and let the room fill with Phil. When we all know I've been exploring that path. We had to move to a playroom. We had to move into the larger hall. I didn't see it with Phil. We had to move into the larger hall. I didn't make speeches. I said, protest, I didn't make speeches, or I said, I didn't make speed, spectaskifict, common. I cue to see con with phase, call, kaki with you with con and city to call I kata rike to we so we to see to kaki with kata to see to we widow we I can you kui to secu like I did to get with you with it to kanada you get to we tie to cla to we with I kaki ka with I could quit I could quit ask I with you I think I didn't when was sick to bear I we kaki I get people who understood that sometimes the only family you have is the one you build from scratch. One afternoon in March, I got a knock on my door. It was Ethan, my oldest grandson, 13 now. He's taller than I remembered. He looked nervous, hands in his pockets. "Hi, Grandma." I stepped outside. "Hi, Ethan. What brings you here?" He shrugged. "Dad said not to come, but I wanted to." I didn't say anything. I waited. He looked down at his shoes. "Thanksgiving was weird without you. So was Christmas. They didn't even cook. We ordered food. It was just different." I nodded. "I saw your card. I didn't really get it at first. Mom was mad about it. But I kept thinking about what you used to say, that family isn't about keeping score. It's about being decent." I looked at him carefully. "Your parents told you not to come." He nodded. Double quotes, "Why did you come then?" He took a deep breath. "Because I miss you, and because I don't want to be like them." I opened the door fully. "You hungry?" He smiled. "Always." We sat at the kitchen table. I heated up leftovers and poured him a glass of apple juice. We didn't talk about Megan or Michael. We didn't need to. After he ate, I gave him a container to bring home cookies I'd baked the day before. He hugged me before leaving. It wasn't dramatic or forced, just real. He's come by every other weekend since then. Sometimes he helps in the garden. Sometimes we watch old movies. He doesn't ask for anything. Tea? Doesn't bring up the past. He just shows up. That's all I ever wanted. In April, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Michael. Just a plain white envelope with no return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was one sheet of paper. I get it now. It took me too long, and I know I don't deserve anything back. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I hope you're doing okay. Michael, no apology for specifics. No asking for forgiveness. Just that dot, I folded it and placed it in the drawer, near the fridge. I didn't respond. That night, I opened the windows and sat by the kitchen table again. The house was quiet, but not in the same way it was last Thanksgiving. Wasn't silence that hurt? It was silence I had chosen. I didn't need Thanksgiving to feel included anymore. I didn't need the illusion of family dinners where I was barely tolerated this year. I gave them what they asked for. They wanted a Thanksgiving without me. So, I gave them something better. A life without my support, without my silence, without my name funding their comfort. And I gave myself peace, not as an act of revenge, but as an act of return.